Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get started. During this presentation, we're going to give you an introduction to Arria NLG Studio. NLG Studio gives you the ability to take in structured data and automatically generate natural language generation narrative. So first, a little bit about myself. I'm Kathy Herbert, and I manage I manage the team that's responsible for empowering ARIA customers and prospects with all of the knowledge that they need to develop really cool NLG projects. And we have seen some really cool NLG projects being developed in the last 3 to 6 months. So we're looking forward to seeing this evolve. When you're looking for the right NLG use case, it's really important to really target something that's going to be high value to your business, as well as a really good fit for the technology. So if you've got frequently changing data and you want to be able to just push a button and get updates to your documents or to your reports, then it's likely to be a really great fit for natural language generation. If you're dealing with you know how to interpret the visuals, but my user community doesn't, then NLG is a really good fit because it brings clarity. If there are multiple versions or personalization requirements, so different users of data need different views into the data or a different story or a different narrative. In working with a hospital, you take the same data and you might tell one story to a doctor, one story to a nurse, and one story to a concerned parent. It's all based on the same data. Another really great use case for natural language generation. So we talked a little about reporting on demand. So rather than have to wait or have a human create a report that's going to take them 4 or 5 hours every week, let's think about our sales teams. Wouldn't be great for them to be able to push a button and generate the reports that need to go to their managers every Friday. Big win for the organization because we push them back out to the field to do what they need to be doing, which is selling. Critical information that humans may miss. I mean, as we've looked through some of the narratives that we've worked with and the data, you know, when a human does it, sometimes we make mistakes. If we're able to really put in the business rules, validate the business rules, we can pretty much go back and say the narrative was driven based on the rules that we set, and those rules can be tracked. So when we're looking at compliant type applications, NLG is a really good fit for that. So again, regulatory reporting. So the topics we're going to talk about today, I'm going to start by going in and really showing you the beginning with the end in mind. So we're going to go into some Power BI projects and show you some output that's been generated from natural language generation. But then I'm going to go into our Studio project. And the Studio project is really what enables our users to generate their own natural language generation for their business and update it. And it's a very powerful tool. So, you know, if we're looking at a financial kinds of documents, you can look at your business rules and say, I'm interested in knowing what contributed to that number, both positive and negative, up to 50% or up to 25%. So there's a lot of power and flexibility in our underlying tool, and I'm going to get into that and show you that today. But we're going to look at NLG Studio. We're going to look at the different project types that we support. I'll introduce you to our dashboard, our projects, how you compose a new NLG project, how you can leverage variables. We're going to talk about custom functions. We have standard functions that are part of the project, but we have a very powerful ability to create custom functions to meet your business needs. And it makes it easier. If you build functions, it can make it easier to manage your projects going forward, or a business user might be able to go call on a function and get exactly the output that they need. We're going to talk about variation. So there are different types of variations that we can drive into natural language generation. We can vary the text by the order of importance that things come through. So, you know, we don't want to talk about, a great example is I'm talking about the weather. And I typically talk about it and I give you the temperature and then I give you the wind speed and then I give you the humidity. If we're in hurricane force winds, wind speed in that condition would be more important than temperature, right? You would want to say we have hurricane force winds. So just sort of a little example of when you might want to use order to change variation. We can also modify word choice from the element level, from the phrase level, or from the paragraph level. So lots of capability in building in variation. We're going to talk about simplifying, again, talk about variables, publishing your project, and then accessing so that it can be presented. Let me go ahead and jump over to my Power BI. So what I'm showing you is actually a dashboard that you can go to our sample site and download. And this happens to be, it's our showcase project. So if you click on the introduction tab, it'll kind of give you some insight on how to get started and what you're looking at. And so I'm going to go ahead and click on Instant Insights. So you can see that we have a box with narrative in it. And if I click on the box, I'm going to move something out of the way so I can see what I'm doing, minimize my control panel over here. You can see that you have an Arria visualization, which is actually automatically generating the narrative based on the measures and dimensions that you've chosen. So data within business intelligence systems, things are either measures or dimensions. So, you know, in this case, we're talking about quarterly expense variance, and I'm going to go in and select the dimensions and measures that I want to get a better insight into or better understanding of. So you can see here that we have a dimension, it's line of business that I've selected from Power BI, and I can put in an alias if I want to rename it. And you can see we have our dimensions and our measures identified. The next thing we want to do is decide what kind of narrative we want to deliver to our users. Do we want descriptive statistics? Would we be interested in things like what is my top performing area? What is my bottom performing area? You know, what are the averages? What are the mean? Those are the types of things that you're going to get out of descriptive statistics. We can also do variance, and variance is either time-based or target-based. So a target-based variance would be, here are my actual figures, you know, versus what my planned figures were, and what was that variance during a given time period. So let's go ahead and do a time-based variance, and I could select year, quarter, month based on dates that have been selected within this within this project, and then we're going to go ahead and select next. In the final step, we get to determine how much information we actually want. So do we want the important things, or do I want to tell me everything? So if I tell me everything and go ahead and generate text, you're going to get lots of information based on what you selected, you know, and again, it'll give you variance information as well as descriptive statistics. I also have the ability to go back in and determine that I only want to talk about the important things. So really cool. You can get up and running really quickly and automatically generate narrative. But what we're finding is that a number of our customers really want to take either what we've done from an out-of-the-box perspective and go in and modify it or update it, or generate a brand new narrative to actually meet their business needs. So you can see you're going to have a second tab, which is custom narrative. Within custom narrative, it's going to work a little bit differently in that, let me go ahead and generate my custom narrative. The custom narrative is developed to meet the specific needs of the business. And so you can see that we have an overview, and this is in the words of the business, where I'm talking about a quarter ending and total expenditures, and it's very specific to what that business needed. Now, this also gives you the ability, we built in the custom narrative some drill down capability. So if I'm a low level manager versus a senior level manager, I might want to get a different view on my data. So that's what the levels give you the ability to do. We can, before, if you had looked at level 2, we gave kind of high level numbers, versus in level 4, I'm talking about reduction mainly due to savings in specific areas as opposed to kind of one larger number. So that's really valuable. The other thing to keep in mind about the narratives that are driven with dashboards, if you want to just look at a particular line of business or just see data in a particular country, it's very interactive. So as you click on things throughout your dashboard, it'll automatically update the narrative to reflect the data that's currently been selected. So you can get a truly interactive narrative experience when working with NLG and dashboards. Now, before we go into Studio, one of the things I want to point out is that we're using Power BI as our presentation layer to bring back the narrative or call the narrative. But I could be calling it from a chatbot. I could be calling it from a website. When you access Arria NLG, and I'm just going to show you this really quickly, when you create an NLG project, you will be able to call it using a RESTful API and an API key. And so it's very easy to simply set that up so that you can be calling your custom projects, creating them quickly and calling them quickly. So I'm going to jump into Studio right now so I can show you where we love to work to create our NLG Studio projects. So I'm going to back out for a second. I have been playing with some of my projects prior to coming in. This is NLG Studio. And within NLG Studio, you can see my dashboard. My dashboard is the projects that represents all of the projects that I've been working on. And from here, I can import a new project. I can create a new project, import an existing project that someone sent to me, or I can get help. So the other thing that's important when you first come into your dashboard, if you go, and I've got lots of projects, if you go down to the bottom, you can see that we have 4 sample projects. These sample projects are the projects that you would create if you went through the tutorials, which we highly recommend that you do. And you can see that there are 4 sample projects, and they represent the 4 different types of NLG projects you can create using NLG Studio. The first project, describe each state, would describe one row of data at a time. So for each row of data, and this is a CSV type project, so you're putting in a comma separated file into NLG Studio, and it'll let you process each row and make a story out of that. So if you think about, maybe a news story or even a sports play-by-play, this might be the right type project for you to select. We also have a type project called we call it Describe All States, but that's when you take all of the data that you've loaded in and it's going to tell one unique story. So that's actually the type project that we use when we're doing things like descriptive statistics. So I'm sending a lot of data at Studio, and I'm bringing back one story as a result. And then there's the describe each state in context. That gives you the ability to put in a CSV file, and each row tells a unique story, but I can use other data within that table to give it context and say, for this row of data, they're in the top third of whatever category we happen to be talking about, because now I can reference the other data around me and figure out what's going on. And the final project type is describe an object, which gives you the ability to pull in JSON data. And that's a very powerful project type as well. So let me go back up to the top. Hang on, my mouse is failing me at the moment. I may have to use my touch screen. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to go into the out-of-the-box descriptive statistics project. My mouse is really not working. I apologize. Are you guys, I'm not seeing anything on my screen. Are you guys seeing my studio screen? I have a mirror of my system, and I'm seeing a black screen. Let me go out. You're seeing it? Okay, great. And my mouse is back working again. Okay, so we're gonna keep going. So down the left side, you'll see that you have a data section, or data tab, a variables tab, a composition tab, a Lex rules tab, a settings tab, and a publish tab. And we're going to go through kind of at a high level what they do and how you're going to use them. So I'm in a JSON type project, and you can tell because it's green up here. And I'm in my data tab, so you can see the JSON data that has been loaded. So it's always nice to be able to go in here and kind of figure out how your data is organized, and that'll help you actually work on your projects. The next piece is the variables tab. We don't have a lot of variables set here, but you can create variables that can be, you're just pulling data directly from your JSON, or you're actually manipulating your data into a variable that you can call later on in your narrative. On the composition side, this is where you're going to spend the lion's share, most of your time, and you can see that in this this is really my NLG authoring tool, and it gives me the ability to go ahead and author my natural language generation. So if you want it to, you can see across the bottom, we have a lot of formatting functions available to us, and the NLG capability is across the top. So we have the ability to insert variables. I can build in conditional if then else kind of rules-based language. We have a number of functions that are available to you, whether they're data access functions, how do I access data within my particular project, how do I manage dates and times, what special formatting do I want to do, whether I'm looking at numbers or currency. Language functions are very key to everything we do at Arria. So you can see that we have choose at random capability. I can inflect noun, inflect words, pronouns, lists, all kinds of unique language features that help us ensure that the language is always accurate. We have math features, we have text features as well. I also have integrated thesaurus. So if I wanted to pick a term, and if I wanted to pick a term in the thesaurus, I could get other like words, and that's really helpful for me. So once you've gone and you've created your narrative, it's time to preview your narrative. So I'm going to go back to main, which is where we always preview from. And I seem to be frozen. Okay. You know what? I am frozen. Let me go back in and see if I can unfreeze myself. Okay, I'm back in out of the box descriptive statistics. So from here, I have the ability to preview my narrative. And so I'm going to go ahead and hit preview, and you can see that the narrative has automatically been generated based on the NLG project that we've put together. If I want to make a quick modification, and I want to say that this particular measure is for ABC company, I can go back to main and preview once again. And you'll see the actual result come up within your narrative. So it's very easy to work within this model to generate NLG that represents your data. So once you're happy with your project and the way it works, it's time to publish your project. When you publish your project, you are going to, I'm going to republish this. It's already been published once. But when I publish it, it's going to give me a RESTful API. And that's how you can call your data if you want to present it from, again, Power BI or Tableau or Click, or a web interface or a chat bot. This is the RESTful API URL. So you can go ahead and copy that. You also have the API key that is generated for you. So I can regenerate an API key, and that'll give me all the information I need to send data to my project and call my project. Other useful things to look at, Arria gives you the capability to version your projects, which is really, really helpful, particularly if you're demoing and you make a lot of changes to your project. You can always go back to your base version. From a team working perspective, I'm the owner, but I can also have collaborators working on projects with me. We also, in the settings, have the ability to determine, to set some standards on currency, whether anytime you're reporting on currency, you want it, if you're working on US data, versus euros or something else, you would have the ability to change the currency at the project level. We give you the ability to optimize what conjunction you're using whenever you put a list together. Now you can always override this when you're actually in the project, but if you're within a script, but at the project level, how do you want your list to appear? And then finally, we have post-processing capability, which is going to automatically enable and correction for you, as well as sentence capitalization. So you don't have to worry about any of that when you're generating your NLG. Before we open for questions, the final thing I wanted to point out is that if you if you go to samples.arria.com, I'm going to go back there. This is where you can access all of our add-ins or plugins to Tableau, Click, and Power BI. Power BI, you can also access the add-in from the marketplace, and we'll be posting, we will be updating Tableau and Click as well on their marketplaces. But for now, those two add-ins you need to grab from our sample site. So when you go into the sample site and you're trying to get started, if I'm a BI user, you can select whatever BI tool you're currently using. And we've got a lot of information here that'll help you get started. So if we're currently at BI version 2, and that's the version we recommend that you start with. That gives you out of the box as well as extending your narrative capability, as well as creating your own custom narratives. So you can see here it's pretty well documented. And the showcase that I walked you through and instructions on how to use the showcase are also available on this site. So if I were configuring narratives, which is what we did when we initially came into the demo, you have full documentation on, what types of, what you need to do, a project that you can download. So you have a download project here, and then how to get insights from that narrative and how to work with out of the box. The next bubble over is talks about extending narratives. So what our out-of-the-box project is using NLG Studio to drive your narrative. And that's a project that we own and manage and maintain. But if you want to take that exact project and download it, make a copy of it, and make changes, you can extend what we're giving you out of the box, and you can manage it and you can maintain it. So this particular page talks about extending the out of the box narrative. And if you look through it, it talks about the architecture. It gives you the opportunity to download a sample BI report, grab the out-of-the-box descriptive statistics project, which is the one we were just looking at. It'll walk you through how you can make some basic changes, how you connect it and configure it, and then you'll be up and running with your own version of the out-of-the-box narrative. And then finally, we have create your own narrative. And that is, we have it fully documented here as well, where you would go in and you would create your own project to be able to generate a narrative using Arria NLG. Well, I've talked for about a half an hour, so I think it's a really good time. I'm going to go back to the webinar dashboard and see if I can open this up. I'm not sure. For registered. It's got to be here someplace. That it? Oh, there it is. Okay, sorry for that delay. I had hidden. Okay, so I am unmuting. I have unmuted you from my side. So if you would like to speak, you'll still need to go into the GoToWebinar panel and individually unmute yourself. And I'm going to check to see if we have any questions here. Okay, I hear somebody.
Hi, Kathy. This is Dan. Do you have an API for Yellowfin?
Dan, we don't currently have an API for Yellowfin. I will check with our engineering and product management team and kind of get a better understanding if that's on our roadmap.
Now, is that something that you all could create, or would that be left to us to create it, or how would that work?
In many cases, we've had things we're not directly integrated with because we've got such easy access through APIs. Many of our customers have built integrations to things like Oracle, just creating a project, sending data, and then exposing it through other areas. So, we can have a separate call and really talk about what type of integration you want. We're working on an integration methodology document that will walk you through the steps that you would need to do to create your own integration to something like Yellowfin. Okay, it looks like there are some questions out here. I'm seeing Studio. Okay, so one of the questions is, can the application process text files or Word documents? That's a function of natural language processing. We currently are natural language generation, but when you look at end-to-end solutions, we do work with partners and other technologies through our PS organization that can parse data coming from documents or Word documents to get them into a structured data file that then we can work with NLG Studio. So that would be more of an NLP. We're currently NLG, but when it comes to providing end-to-end solutions, that's something that we would be able to do. So I also have a question. Can I use Arria NLG as a software as a service? So we offer 3 different deployment options. So deployment option number 1 is to go out to our public cloud, sign up for an account, create a project, and get started. Option number 2 is that we manage a dedicated instance on your behalf. And many of our large regulated companies want to do that behind their firewall, but they want us to manage it for them. So that's something that we're very comfortable doing. And then the third option is that we provide you the software that you can run and manage behind your firewall on premises, which could be on premise in the cloud, but that would be self-managed, the third option. Can anyone use this tool? For example, an accountant. I actually love this question. One of our early adopters, and they actually work in our CSV type projects, when I talked about the 4 different project types, is a company called Herbs Media, and they do robotic journalism. And so they've really been able to change the way news stories are written and delivered today. What they do is they'll load in data into a project, and they'll have actually a journalist, so they hire journalists, and the journalists will sit down and they'll kind of look at the data and try and figure out what it's telling them, and they might write 3 versions of the story. If I'm talking about teenage pregnancy, is this line of data that I've read is this a good case? Is it a bad case? Is it a medium case? And they'll write up a unique story for kind of each of the classifications that will inevitably generate 100 unique stories to different locations within the country. Do you work with Spotfire? We are currently in the process of developing a Spotfire integration. In fact, I saw a demo of it earlier this week, so stay tuned for a date on that. Okay, and I see a request for us to get in touch with a few people, which is awesome. Okay, I'm trying to see if I missed any questions. Can you talk about on premises? So from an on-premise perspective, we can provide our software in a containerized in a Docker container, and so we provide that to you. Your license for usage of it, you would load it, install it, manage it within your existing infrastructure. Oh, I think that was, I'm sorry, I think that was, can I talk about the pricing? So I'm not going to get into a lot of specifics on the pricing, but let me just talk a little bit at a high level about our pricing models. So there are certain types of NLG use cases that you kind of have a firm understanding of what your word count is. And so we have a model that users pay for a seat of NLG Studio, and then they will also they'll purchase a bundle of word count. So that's pricing option number 1, and there are a few different bundles within that. The second option is I'm working in a BI environment, and every time somebody clicks a button, it's generating a brand new unique narrative for me, and I have no idea what my exposure on word count would be. And in that case, we have a pricing model where we will bundle studio users that are creating the projects and viewers on the Power BI side, and give you bundled pricing on that. So we're really in that model not taking into consideration word count. And then the third model is where we would work directly with you on application-specific licensing. Okay, another question. Can I get the lab features programmatically? If I can make an API call with the data and parameters and get back a summary? Absolutely. That is absolutely the way we work. So we have a new feature coming out called Studio Runner that would really shows you very effectively how that works, in that you pass in the data file along with the URL, the RESTful endpoint, as well as the RESTful API key, and you'll get back your summary. So I have a question here. How can we send a demo request to a supervisor for them to review? I think this is a really kind of good point to really talk to you guys about how we work. Arria is all about empowering businesses to use Studio to generate their own NLG, and there is a bit of a ramp. So from a ramp perspective, I'm going to jump back over to NLG Studio, and I can't believe I haven't shown you this yet. But from if I'm in NLG Studio, let me minimize, get some things off my screen so I can see what I'm doing. On the question mark, we've built out some interactive tutorials to get you started. So this is my help area. So if you're within the product and you want to contact support and send us an email, you can click in the left-hand corner, really easy. If you want to get some more insight on how do I sort my data, you can go directly to the part of the documentation that helps you sort. If you want it to go through our JSON guided tutorial, you can go through, we recommend that you go through each of the steps. Each of the steps lasts about 5 minutes. It's a really high-level overview of how the system works. If you need a refresher at any point in time, you can go back to any of the tutorials where you forgot how functionality works, and you can watch the video or go ahead and redo the tutorial as many times as you want. So, we've built in as much training as we can to get you started. That said, if you've got a great business use case, we're happy to work with you on creating that first paragraph based on your data. So we will work interactively with clients to get them started and to get you to the point where you're really comfortable generating your own NLG, and we're just here to support your efforts. Pricing based on per user or per API call. So our pricing is based on the BI package is priced on user. If you take the second option that I had given, if you are doing the word count, that would be per API call, because every time you do an API call, it'll generate X number of words and we calculate that. So we're flexible in our pricing model in that depending on what you're trying to do from a business perspective, we have different models that'll fit the need. There's a question here about, do you have use cases with RPA and Arria? We do have some clients that we're currently working with on how NLG can be used to supplement what they're currently doing with RPA. I don't have anything to show you on that today, but should in the near future. Great questions, by the way. So I'm going to give this about 2 more minutes, and if we don't have any more questions, we'll go ahead and close up for today. We are working on an advanced series where we'll go through some additional details. I also have a team, and we're willing to get on the phone with anybody building a project and kind of help one-on-one walk you through the process to create your first project. Can anyone use this tool? Oh, let's see. Yeah, there's a request to demo to someone's team. Absolutely, we would be happy to do that. And we will get back to you directly on that. So there's a question, do you have to buy Studio in order to access the samples and showcases? We do offer a free trial, and it's been very successful for us because once people actually start working in and developing narrative, it's a great path forward. So, in order to get started, what we recommend is that you go out to the sample site, download the showcase, and go into Studio. So if you type in app.studio.arria.com, let me go there. It will bring you directly to the, I'm already logged in, but it'll bring you to the login page. And if you go to our website, www.arria.com, it will also give you the ability to go get a trial version of NLG Studio, which is actually a fully functioning version. Okay, great meeting. Oh, how long does a trial version last? I believe it's typically a 30-day trial, although I think there is a word count that's associated with it. So if you get going really quickly, I can check the specifics on that and get back to you on that. Okay, great. I'm going to go ahead and shut down this call, but again, you'll see additional invites for some advanced targeted sessions, potentially on financial service and other areas, where we can go into details on some of the tips and strategies we use to generate NLG. Have you done safety narratives for pharmaceutical? We have. We do have a very large pharmaceutical using us for clinical safety reports, as well as in their financial department. They're also looking to move into their HR department. So we are seeing that as a very strong target of ours. Do we have a narrative for the alarm industry? From an NLG perspective, once you've loaded, if you're looking at the out of the box narrative, it can pretty much be configured for anything. So whether it be alarm data, whether it be customer or product description data, so you might have descriptions for different types of alarm systems that you want to send out to customers. You can easily build those from a custom perspective, as well as drive those from an out of the box perspective. So we'd be happy to work with you to see what the fit is for NLG within the alarm industry. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and shut down the call for today. But again, thank you. And if you have requested for us to get back in touch with you, we will be doing that this afternoon or tomorrow. Oh, one more question. Yes, it is absolutely possible, and it's something that we do quite frequently to generate several text variations from the same data. And so that's something that we would be happy to walk through with you or talk to you about your requirements. But absolutely, that is one of the things that we do within Arria. Okay, great. Thank you for attending today's session, and we look forward to working with you.